So, let's talk about the bad guys. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I've never read any of the books. And to be honest, I was a bit actually quite excited into the bad guys film, alright, made by DreamWorks, despite the fact their films lately are a bit mediocre, which makes the audience not very interested into checking out the movies. But to be honest about the bad guys, this could be a bit of a big improvement by DreamWorks. Well, since this is a base book movie, since it does work with other ones like Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon, and Captain Underpants, then this film could have some potential. So now that we're looking into the bad guys, would this film would be an improvement for DreamWorks, or is there a reason why it's called the bad guys? Well, we'll see for ourselves. The story is mostly about the bad guys trying to pretend to be good and not to get themselves out of trouble, while one member of the group seems to have a feeling to be as a good guy. Yeah, I know people would compare this to like Wreck-It Ralph, Despicable Me, and Megamind, but there are some stuff that does make the story a bit engaging, like with some of the car action scenes and a bit of intense moments, that it does make the feature a bit worthwhile than the other films that DreamWorks have made nowadays to make this onto an engaging journey, I would say. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is not the strongest story I've ever heard from like DreamWorks. Since it is kind of easy to tell what will happen with like some of the journey that the bad guys have to go through in order to be good guys, some friends conflict, and even who the twist villain would be. So yeah, I do understand the engaging part about the plot about bad guys becoming good, but that's always done in animated films, to say we. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is not the strongest story I've ever heard from like DreamWorks. Since it is kind of easy to tell what will happen with like some of the journey that the bad guys have to go through in order to be good guys, some friends conflict, and even who the twist villain would be. So yeah, I do understand the engaging part about the plot about bad guys becoming good, but that's always done in animated films, to say we. However, they did find a way to make this all work, which make this a bit entertaining with most of the stuff that happens with the characters bringing this film a lot of charm and some good supply of action scenes that does make this film a bit engaging to watch. Well, I know this ain't the best story I heard from DreamWorks, but at least I can say that at least it's the finest stories compared to their recent films. As for the animation, I can safely say that people would make comparison of this to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Well, that is kind of true, right? Since DreamWorks did saw the film and think to themselves, man, we gotta create an animation like that. So did they succeed in it? Well, yeah, they actually did. And a very big one too. It has a bit of mix, well, it includes some bit of anime styles to make this a bit similar like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like I just said. It's a bit similar to like what Turning Red, what Pixar did to that film. Instead, it in Turning Red has a bit of cartoon mixed into it, while Bad Guys seems like one of them Studio Ghibli films. So a bit more round with some of the characters having that bit of that cute and kid friendly look to make this give it a reason why it's a DreamWorks film. And it does work well with some of the comedic moments and even some of the intense scenes with the action scenes. As for the character animation, it's smooth whenever someone moves with their legs, and there can be at times where they have a little bit cartoonier movement, but it's still smooth and does give a bit of nostalgia of comic books, if you will. And it also works with the character animation on the bad guys. It's like with Miss Tarantula's some hacking skills with her legs or arms or whatever. Of Shark having some nice disguises, and Piranha having some bit of that energy in him. But the other characters in the flippin' bad guys team does have some unique animation put into it. Like whenever Wolf has a body reaction when he does something that's actually good. But what about the Spider-Verse comparisons, you say? Well, it does work well with some of the textures and a better use of colors. I mean, yeah, it can sacrifice some of the details, but it still looks good on its own, you know. Mm-hmm. And yes, I know the fur. There wasn't that much fur on like Mr. Wolf, but it does show on how it's mostly act like a 2D. But I'm not saying it's trying to be 2D, but like something you see in the cartoon nowadays. Drawing may not be the best, but at least I can say that DreamWorks did the effort to put in a stylized, good-looking animation. As for the characters, and start off with the bad guys, they are anything but bad, which they mostly give out the emotion and the heart and the bonding throughout this feature. And yes, it's a bit cliched and all, but you can tell that these characters are pretty good and nice and well done in this film. As for the voice acting, it's actually pretty good, I would say. Hey, especially whenever they try to bring out some humors that do actually give you a quite good laughs. And it also brings out some of the emotions whenever they go into an emotion scene. Starting off with the members of the bad guys, there was Mr. Wolf, who is often the brains and the leader who actually does make a lot of trouble. But there's another side of him that makes him realize that what if he becoming good is a good thing for him, or not for just for his guys. Alright, so he still has a bit of heart throughout this film. As for his buddies, there's his best friend, Mr. Snake, who is a good example of being a bad guy in the Bad Guys movie. And for Mr. Shark, he's the master of disguises who really does good well with the comedy, which has the most funny scenes in the film. Mr. Ranger, the tech expert who really does have to be the master of hacking, if you will. And Mr. Piranha, who is a crazy little piranha, but he really does have a lot of energy to keep anyone in this way. Person that's chased them, there's Misty Luggins, who her only goal is to capture and lock up the bad guys in her life goal. As for the people who help them, there's Professor Marmalade, who is the good-hearted, what's it called, the guinea pig, yeah, who actually tries to give a good reason why to like the bad guys, and Diane Foxington, who is the one who also tries to help out the bad guys, but maybe I won't say much of her for spoiler reasons, but it is quite noticeable what will happen to her next. As for the twist villain, and yes, there is a twist villain in this movie, which to be honest, this twist villain is weak. I mean, I will say he is a bigger exception to the recent Disney twist villains, but he is still not quite a good twist villain since he might as well be like that in the book since I just researched that up. But as always, at least it does show some funny, lovable, emotional, and a great cast of characters. The Bad Guys is one of DreamWorks' best anime films in recent years. Well, yes, the story is a bit predictable, and the twist villain seems terrible. But at least it has some great stylized animation, some funny humor, some great heart, and a memorable characters by a very comedic cast or other cast that aren't comedic but still has some good voice acting. I know this won't be the best anime film of all time, but at least I can say that this film is good. Actually, more than just good. And that's why I'm giving this the seal of masterpiece, which is a seal that goes to films that did very of a great job to make themselves some memorable animated films, including this one by now, or like with other films. They may be as the bad guys, but at least they find a way to make themselves good.